Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from the West Coast. Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we've got a little one-game slate on this Thursday night as March Madness gets underway. So we're taking a look at some futures bets here. We're going to be taking a look at some team futures here with some the odds for division winners, maybe some champions, conference winners, etc. So we'll take a look at some of the stuff that we like in here. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. We do have a couple other videos up for you today, including one about the MVP odds as well. And then that Detroit-Orlando game, two juggernauts clashing tonight that we definitely want to make sure we check out some best bets and player props in there for you. Make sure you're checking out thelines.com for that odds checker and props tool, finding all the best juice on that's available out there from those odds makers. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com and find those listings in your area, such as some of the stuff we've got for championships and team futures. Nate, let's jump into it.
Yeah, first I'll just run through the odds here at FanDuel Sportsbook. Suns are the favorite, plus 390. Warriors follow, plus 460. Then you got the Nets, plus 550. Bucks, plus 650. Sixers, plus 750. The Heat, leading the East, are at plus 1,000. The Celtics, leading the league in defense recently, plus 1,400. Jazz, plus 1,800. Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets, plus 2,500. The upstart Grizzlies, plus 3,000. And then I'll cut it off after the Mavs at plus 4,000. I mean, they've been incredible lately. Got that buzzer beater last night to beat the Nets. And then you're just looking at different angles here. I think it's fitting that we're talking about this on March Madness Day because the best bet I've seen here on DraftKings or FanDuel is the special offered by DK, where you can bet, it's future specials, and you can bet by state. You can just take the field instead of New York, Cali, or Florida or Texas, which is essentially the Warriors, the Nets, the Heat, the Mavericks. You can take anyone but those four teams. Those four teams to fail at minus 150. So that gives you the defending finalists, the Suns, Bucks, along with the Celtics, 76ers, Nuggets, who are getting Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. back soon, the Jazz, and the Grizzlies. And I mean, just like we saw with college basketball a few years ago, like the death of the blue chip program, essentially, right? Like everyone has a shot in the NBA now. I don't know if it's a CBA thing. I don't know if it's the way the game has embraced analytics, but every one of these teams legitimately could win the title. There is absolutely no number one team. The Nets are certainly the most scary team, but they also obviously have a huge uphill battle. And so if you just kind of run through it and think how these teams might fail, the Nets and the Heat almost cancel each other out. If the Nets can't win in Toronto without Kyrie Irving, then they're getting the Heat first round. I mean, that'll be a war. We'll see who emerges from it. Will they be too tired to then deal with Boston or something? The Warriors, I don't think me or Josh feel have any chance to win the title. I think last night reinforced that with Draymond still not healthy, Steph rolling his ankle foot, and them getting completely shut down by the Celtics defense. They're still trying to figure some things out. And Miami, while it is a dangerous and trendy team to pick, they don't have much continuity. I mean, their starters have played like 50 minutes together all season. They don't have many offensive options. I mean, Jimmy Butler had that historic bubble run, but is he really the guy to like carry you in a series the way, I don't know, Giannis, Chris Paul, Jokic, guys you trust on that end. So, I mean, you're just getting so many options here for minus 150 that I just love putting some money on that bet. And the other special I'll mention is you can bet by division. And certainly I would bet the Atlantic division to get you both Nets, Celtics, and Sixers at plus 200. I think the East is better this year. So, I mean, the Suns do have an easier road to get there. But I don't trust the Warriors, like I said. And I think that the East, whoever emerges from that, will be more battle tested. Maybe they'll be more tired, but I would take the Eastern Conference to win this year. And that's another thing you can bet at just under even money is which conference will win. I think those three teams leading the field in the East really going to be really tough for whoever gets them in the West.
Yeah, for sure. I think you can start to look at matchups a bit at this point to help you determine what's going to happen here as well. You rightly started there in terms of what could happen in the East. I think that's really the most important thing for anybody coming out of the East is who are you playing at this point? Because it's a minefield, as you kind of said, as you mentioned, and I think that field bet is beautiful because honestly, I do like Phoenix still. I think the two teams I really like in the West right now specifically. I mean, obviously you love the Grizz. I still see them as potentially a year away. I do think that there's some flaws to the way that they play. The fact that they're really the best regular season team in a lot of ways, specifically regular season, just because of the fact that they are very deep. They love to run. They love to get out and go. And a lot of those points don't necessarily come in the playoffs when it's a little bit more of a defensive grind. Teams are getting back on D a lot faster and with a lot more urgency. And obviously Ja is not someone you want to have to try to stop in the open floor, but there's definitely a better ways to do it, in the playoffs once you get into that ability to just really game plan for a player versus needing to, just sort of coming in on the off of a playing on a regular season game and just sort of going with whatever sort of preparation you have been able to muster for this team in the last couple of days. So my point being, I like Phoenix a lot out of that West to come out. I think the Pacific bet in terms of someone to come out of the Pacific to win the title is silly at this point, because to your point, I don't feel comfortable about Golden State at all. This would have been an awesome bet, even at plus 160 would have been an awesome bet, earlier in the season when you still kind of had the notion that maybe Clay was going to come back, be Clay fully. Draymond wasn't hurt. Steph was still Stephen. It's just all bad right now for them, especially last night. We're literally recording this at the worst possible time to take the Warriors, as we don't know what's going to happen to Steph Curry's foot and ankle, leg, etc. As Marcus Smart, in a completely clean manner, by the way, if anybody wants to talk about it, just dove for a ball that Steph did not dive for, and he got his ankle rolled up on. It's not an illegal play. The weird one was the next play down the floor where he kicked Klay Thompson in the chest while he was trying to block a shot. That was a little weird, but either way, Steph being out, not great for anybody who likes Golden State, which we no longer do. So that Atlantic division makes sense. That DK special for the field makes sense. And then, like I said, I would just consider the Suns more so than I would consider anybody else. They're getting Chris Paul back. I also love Denver because it's one of those things where, we all know that feeling where you're playing in a fantasy league and you draft a guy who's hurt at the beginning of the season because he's coming back and you just can't wait for him to add more to your team. You've got somebody coming in. That's Jamal Murray to a degree, but at the same time, we don't know what he's going to be like when he comes back nearly the way we do that with Chris Paul, who missing 2 months is not nothing, but it's definitely a lot less than missing more than a year's worth of play at this point for Jamal Murray. So I don't feel comfortable betting on Denver to do much after they do get into the playoffs, to be honest with you. I'm not going to bet on that. I already bet, by the way, on them to win the division, that Denver. That's where I liked them. You might still consider them if you like, as Utah continues to sputter a bit, and Denver's just been so super hot, and I think they'll continue that as they want Jokic to get that MVP nod again as well. So I think that'll continue for them. So I think, yeah, for just to finish the championship thought for a minute, like I said, I have no problem taking Phoenix or the field or that Atlantic division to win the title there. I think those are your three best bets at the moment. And then, I don't know. Do you have any sort of division stuff that you're looking at here? Because like I said, the Nuggets are somewhere where I would start with that.
Yeah, you mentioned it. They're plus 390 right now. They're 1.5 games behind Utah. And their schedule is a little bit easier for sure. They just got through that gauntlet with very short rest, and 8 of their last 12 are at home with no back-to-backs. Michael Porter Jr. is looking at a return next week. Jamal Murray is practicing with the G League, so help is on the way. Their only 4 road games here are Cleveland, Charlotte, Indy, and the Lakers, 4 teams that are really backsliding right now. Yeah. When the Nuggets are, they're 27-6 against teams below 500, much better record than the Jazz, and they're 8-2 in one possession games, whereas the Jazz are 1-6.
Isn't that wild?
While the Jazz have been great at home, they host LA, the Clippers tomorrow, and then they go on a 6-game road trip. And that includes games at Brooklyn, at Boston, at Dallas. They have 2 back-to-backs remaining. They're 13-1 in the division this year, and they only have 2 cupcakes left against the Thunder and Blazers. Those are wins, but they have not been very reliable outside of their division or on the road, whereas the Nuggets are 37-19 out of the division. So I still like the juice you're getting here. It's not quite as great as it was around the All-Star break when we talked about taking this, but I think Denver can catch them. And I think the Celtics and Sixers is also an intriguing one to look at. They're tied in the win column right now. Celtics 42-28, Sixers 42-26. The way the Celtics are playing defense right now, they're 24-7 since January 7th. It's hard to imagine them losing many games. They've won 9 of their last 10 against teams above 500 with an average margin of 18 points per game. And that's the key for me here because, like I said, the Sixers are going to be a little scared, I think, of moving up to that 2 seed and potentially getting Brooklyn if Brooklyn wins their first play-in game. The Celtics aren't scared of anybody. Yeah. I mean, they've smacked Brooklyn a couple times when they were shorthanded, and they beat them with both Kyrie and KD on the floor. Celtics should not be scared of anyone the way they've handled these teams, like I said. And so their remaining tough games, Miami, Milwaukee, Memphis, those are teams they all just beat and beat pretty impressively. Whereas Philly, we haven't really seen it against top teams with James Harden out there. They still have Phoenix, Milwaukee, Miami, Dallas, Toronto twice, and 2 back-to-backs in there. And they have not been very clutch down the stretch at home. In fact, the second worst net rating on the season. And the Celtics 24-12 at home seem pretty much unbeatable at home since their defense went. So that is all to say plus 160 for Boston to catch one game behind Philly at the moment, where I think Philly might actually intentionally slide to that 4 spot to get Chicago, which they've owned. Or just not try too hard to move up to the 2 spot where they might see Brooklyn.
No, that's fair. A lot to break down there. I would start, if you want to start with the East, just to kind of piggyback off where you just ended there. Firstly, for the division, I think that's the only one left that you really consider in terms of Boston being able to catch Philly. You just look at the other spots where you might have a pick worth picking for the juice in terms of another Eastern Conference team, especially winning a division that's not currently leading to get those odds up. There's just nothing in there for you. Miami, I think I already bet on them to win that earlier in the year at about minus 300, but I still got a lot of juice there. That's no longer worth anything. Obviously, the Bulls were leading the Central Division before the All-Star break, and they were actually sitting at plus 170 at the moment at that time to win the division, which was better odds or longer odds rather than the Milwaukee Bucks, who were sitting behind them in the division. Milwaukee's overtaken them by 2.5 games. Chicago's also backsliding, in a way that's obviously going to put them at about a 4 or 5 seed at this point at best. So I think, Miami is another spot that I like. I think they're still getting disrespected. One thing I like about them is the fact that at home, they have about the 5th best record, 20-13 when they play in Miami. And honestly, I look at one of the things you brought up about them in terms of their lack of consistency with their lineups. I know that's not necessarily the greatest thing when you're getting into the playoffs. You want to have a rhythm, but I still think that they've saved their guys enough, and they Spoelstra's worked this in a way where they're going to get all these guys healthy, and they're going to have them all at the same time in these playoffs in terms of Bam, Jimmy, Hero, Kyle Lowry, who is another addition that we just don't talk about enough because of how much he even increases their ability to play defense, which was already really, really good. So I think Miami, I would look at them as the Eastern Conference winner potentially at plus 475, only because there is the possibility, as we said, Brooklyn's going to beat the crap out of somebody in the first round and probably win that series, especially if they're on the road. Obviously, if it's 2-7 versus Milwaukee, we're going to have a ton of fun with it, but they're going to beat the crap out of each other. And if that's the case, then I don't think the next team you want to see is, if it's a 4, whomever it is Miami at the 1 seed. I think that 4 seed is actually in a bad spot, to be honest with you. I don't think you want that. I think the 3 seed is where you go at this point if you're trying to play that game. But at the same time, we had this conversation with the Lakers a couple of seasons ago where it was like, oh, do you, and they lost to Phoenix because it seemed like they were trying to play Phoenix rather than a different team at the 2-7 spot. And that came back to bite them. And I think that we all love to talk about the sort of karma that comes from trying to be sneaky like that rather than just going out and playing the teams you want to play. So I hope that's the case for this season in the East, is that everybody's just sort of playing to win no matter what. But either way, just the West is where I look for a division. And I do like Phoenix to come out of the conference. But the division there, and by the way, Phoenix plus 160 just to win the conference as well. I think it's worth it, to be honest with you, for them, because I don't really feel strongly about any of these other teams nearly as much as I do with Phoenix once they get Chris Paul back. And then the last thing I would say about the divisions there, I already took Denver at plus 600, and I would take them again at plus 390. They were 6 games back when I took them, 1.5 games back now, as you mentioned, 8 of 12. So, I saw this coming. Denver had like 11 cupcake games in a row coming out of that All-Star break, playing the Thunder twice, losing once, playing the Kings twice, playing the Pistons. I mean, they got it nice and easy for them right away. Then they, like you said, they went through a really tough stretch on the road, and now they're back 8 of 12 at home. Jokic is going to come for that MVP. Plus 390 is still so worth it to take on these Jazz here, who, like you said, have a ridiculous stretch of their own there on the road. Celtics, Nets, Mavs, even the Clippers on the road are not an easy team. And then one more against the Warriors and the Grizz and the Suns. This is all on the Jazz's schedule still left. Whereas the Nuggets, you're talking about teams that don't even come close. I mean, Spurs, Lakers, Pacers, Hornets, Thunder. They do have the Suns in there, but then they get the Cavs again with one game against the C's. So just 3 games against winning teams left for Denver out of those 12. It's really looking good right now for Denver. So plus 390 is still super worth it. But anything else you're looking in there for team futures, or you pretty much summed it up?
Yeah, I mean, the last thing I would do is if there's a gun to my head and I have to try to pick a champion at these odds, I would take the Bucks still. I mean, I would take the defending champs, who seem like they've really been pacing themselves in a loaded field and are kind of turning the corner now. Brook Lopez just got back. It'll take him some time to work back into form, but they have time. And Giannis, an improved shooter at this point, improved his post-up game. We saw what he did down the stretch. I'm just not going to bet against him at this point with Milwaukee in favorable position and with them, bringing all that experience into it. Yeah. So, I mean, you're getting value on the defending champs there. That goes into the betting on the field. Is that that's a likely scenario, but on their own at plus 750, not a bad bet at all.
Yeah, no, I'm with that for sure. It's going to be super fun down here. And the Brook Lopez is a good point that we didn't bring up in the Defensive Player of the Year discussion. Giannis has not had him all season. That's huge for his ability to still have all those great defensive numbers. So either way, that is all the time we have for you in this one, having a little bit of fun with these future odds. Make sure you are liked and subscribed to that page. Got a couple other videos up for you today. Obviously, that Detroit and Orlando game, as well as another video talking about the MVP and DPOY there. So make sure you check those out. And until we see you next, happy betting.